Welcome to this new lightning demo and roundtable session from pimvendors.com. Today, we are going to discuss the onboarding of data with AI. That means we are going to look at the ways on which AI can help you map, transform, and maybe even cleanse data. I have three very interesting speakers today with their presentations ready for you. And just for housekeeping, we'll start with three presentations, three lightning demos. That'll take 15, 20 minutes per presentation. And we'll end with a plenary roundtable discussion where I invite all the speakers back again to discuss the topics of product information, product data, onboarding, and artificial intelligence and how they all intersect, and maybe have them share their vision on the future developments as well. But first, maybe some introductions. I'm Stefan Spijkers. I'm co-founder of pimvendors.com. We do PIM consultancy, so independent PIM consultancy specifically, where we have 50 partners where we help you select either the best fit, so the best fitting PIM, or just help you get the best and most out of your existing PIM solution. We also provide a lot of independent information around PIM. So if you check our website, there's knowledge-based articles, there's tools that you can use on your product information management journey. Today, you're all welcome on this event. I really would like to invite you all to use the chat functionalities. We're live on both LinkedIn and on YouTube. Both of those have a chat functionality on the right-hand side. You can drop your questions there, your comments, your misgivings, or maybe your cheers if you see interesting features in the presentation or interesting points being made by the different speakers. And we'll pick up those questions and comments and either directly, right? We can chat and respond back, or we will pick those up during the roundtable part, so the Q&A part of this event. So I hope you stick around, and if you do, you're able to interact directly with speakers today. Not a part of the housekeeping is that we will be recording this event, so you'll be able to watch parts of it or the whole session later if you have to drop out early or if you are dropping in late. So yes, this session is recorded. You'll be able to share it with colleagues if you wish, and we'll be publishing this on YouTube in a cleaner version as well. So we cut out all my spelling mistakes and all the hiccups. We add a nice intro sound, and then we publish it on YouTube. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to our first speaker of today, Tony. Tony from Akeneo, would you like to introduce yourself? And then basically the floor is yours. So good luck.
Thanks, Stefan. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me today. I'm Tony, Sales Director at Akeneo. We are a product experience platform. And today I'll present specifically our solution when it comes to supplier data managing and how AI plays a role there. So let me start here. Stefan, let me know if it's all good.
Yeah, so all good. Tony, you can start. We can see the presentation.
Okay, wonderful. So for those that are not familiar with Akeneo, we did actually a webinar with Stefan a few weeks ago where we go a bit deeper into it. What I will focus on today is one of our modules called Supplier Data Manager, and how you can use that when it comes to getting data from your suppliers and how you can leverage the AI capabilities of a company called Unify that we just recently acquired. And before we jump on that, to give you a bit of a macro view, this is basically the Akeneo PIM in a simplified schema. The idea is that we manage data from any source, whether it's ERP, let's say suppliers, procurement, and so forth. We connect it to the PIM. That's really the place where you enrich, activate, manage, translate, and so forth. And then you can send it to all destination where you need it, whether that's e-commerce, print catalog, point of sale, and so forth. What we will do today is focus on this part, the suppliers. That's where the supplier data manager plays a role. And what's the whole point? As the French say, raison d'être is this. So the problem is that suppliers have messy spreadsheets. If you're in the field working with this will probably look familiar to you. These are just some of the examples of customers that have shared them with us. When they say we receive data from our suppliers, they're basically, they mix things, data is missing, it's incomplete. Some of them work in one particular file, the others in others. So how do you manage this? Now, if that's from one supplier, it's one thing. The problem is the scales across all your suppliers. And then it just becomes a time-consuming, inefficient process to where you end up doing a lot of manual work. And what we want to show you today is how to improve that, because the problem comes down to it's a slow time to market. It takes a long time to get everything completed. The data quality is low, and there's no clear data governance between you as, let's say, a Kineo customer and your suppliers. It's hard to do that. And of course, inefficient communication between the company and the suppliers when it comes to back and forth. So supplier data manager, obviously the polar opposite. The idea is that you improve the collaboration with the suppliers. We make sure that there's more accurate and complete product content coming from them. And of course, as a consequence, business outcomes like a faster time to market because of the functionalities, automation, but also lots of AI. Now, this is where the supplier data manager can be placed. Before data goes into your Akeneo PIM, all the suppliers basically will have access to the supplier data manager, or they can send data to you and then you upload it here. There's various use cases in here. To summarize it, what we've seen is that there are two use cases that can be separated. Number one, the suppliers upload whatever they have into the supplier data manager. So they can just log in, they have their own access to this portal, and they will be able to upload whatever you've requested, or they upload whatever data file they have in mind. The next more, let's say, more detailed way of working is you tell your suppliers, look, this is the type of data I want from you for this particular data, for this particular product. So these are the attributes that are required and so forth. They then log in and upload that. They will see what's missing. And then you can tell them, here's the data that's missing. Can you please complete this? What we see more and more is actually a blended approach. They will upload something and you can simultaneously tell them the following information is missing. Can you work on it? So it's more messy. And this is basically the part that we especially solve. No matter how they work, you can accommodate them, but at the same time, you can leverage a more automated process to get things done faster. And this is then how it in the end looks like for you and for them. Whether they log in to their own supplier data, they can literally drag and drop a file into this portal that they have, or you log into your own Akeneo instance and you upload their file. Then from then, it's just a matter of working through the motions of getting the data completed before it goes to your PIM. Now, to show you how and where AI plays a role, I'll tell you now, starting from this moment, when you, or in this case, you upload a file into this portal, what happens exactly? And for that, I'd like to introduce this company called Unify. We acquired Unify 3 months ago, and we're in the process of merging everything. But in the end, our mission with this acquisition is to create the world's first intelligent product cloud. And especially at the intersection of getting the data from your suppliers into the supplier data manager, they can play an enormously productive role. And what we're doing is basically the following. The promise is that without Unify, this is what you're dealing with. I guess a familiar, again, spreadsheet. And with Unify, this is the result. Missing data is completed, incorrect data is corrected, and so forth. Now, as much as we and most other companies like to call this magic, there's machine learning behind it. So this is, in the end, how we break down the problem into steps. and how every single module, that's what we call them, solves a particular problem in enriching, completing, and getting the data where it should be from your suppliers. This is what it comes down to. So first of all, they log in, they upload everything into like I've shown you. There's like a drag and drop. That's one thing. The next part is we go and we map it. Now, most of you are already familiar with concepts like mapping, so this is fairly straightforward. It will do most of it in an automated fashion. Whenever there is not enough confidence in the match, they will ask the user, "Can you double check this?" Same thing goes for classification. Like classifying products in hierarchies and families happens about 90% automated. Initially, maybe you will get a few prompts to say, can you double check this? And as you complete data manually, the system learns, and next time it will know, it will remember this. And that's also what we'll show in a second in our demo. And then this is the part where, when I will show you the demo where we start, is here, the enrichment part, because that's when it really gets interesting. So how can our system help you complete the product attributes, for example, by extracting values from a particular description? That's quite a productivity booster, so that you don't have to yourself read it, find out, extract it, and so forth. The next step will be normalizing it, so correct the errors, standardize it, and so forth. And finally, sending it to the PIM by knowing what product should this be linked to. So let's go for a brief demo, and we start once you as an end user of Akeneo have uploaded one of the files from your suppliers into Supplier Data Manager. The first 3 steps have already been completed. So this whole mapping is done, classification is done, and where I'm going to start the video is right here, the enrichment part. In this example, you are a reseller of golf equipment and so forth. Stefan, I will share this and let me know when you're good.
Yep, you're ready.
Yep. Okay. So this is my colleague explaining it at the step of we call this extraction, but this is essentially what we also we will call enrichment. So here we go.
To the right areas. Next step is extraction, and that's a very interesting part. You could imagine if I'm receiving, product data from my suppliers, it's not coming in the same format as I need it. And if I'm looking at this step, and this is a very powerful one, you see that a lot of information is in a free text field, right, coming from the supplier. But I want to have this in very specific attributes. Why? Because I want my end consumers on the website to have certain search facets and criteria that they can leverage. Or Amazon Marketplace is expecting from me to have these fields pre-filled, right? If I'm transferring this product to the Amazon Marketplace. So with Unify, and the intelligence of Unify, it's looking at these kind of text fields, in this case, black and blue. And, this is black and blue. This is basically mapping the right color automatically to our color attribute. Or we have a grip type, and the grip type here is described as with a black cross-line grip type by Lemkin, which is Cobra, Slightest, etc. So it's a Cobra, Lemkin, cross-line grip type. It's assigning the right attribute to the right. Assigning the right value to the right attribute. And this is not only with text values. It's also working with metrics. So here only weighs 5.5 kilograms. Very strange way of writing it in the text, but our intelligence is making 5.5 out of 5.5 and adds kilograms to the weight unit. So this is how AI is helping you really to bring out the best of product information and add it to the right attributes in your PIM system, which then, of course, later on, if you're exporting this, is very helpful and basically very important for a perfect customer experience. All right, so we can validate this. This looks good. Go to the next step, and next step is here. It's the value mapping. In the value mapping, sometimes we have specific values. In our case, we have right and left as a value for the golf club or for the golf driver, for left or right-handed. But our suppliers, as we know, are not keeping the same nomenclature. So in this case, they have sent right, small letters, and they have sent left-handed. And what I can do here once, and then the system is learning from that, I can add this left-handed attribute to our left attribute. And once I'm validating this and saving this, next time I'm importing the same catalog or a catalog with the same value, our AI is doing the job again, right? So this is how you really improve this kind of like onboarding process. The last part, a very important part as well, the normalization part, our intelligence is also looking at the data. So in this case, we have 3 cases. First one, it's looking at this data record. It's telling me that this value does not match, like it's a UPC code, basically a number in 12 digits. So I can go in here and I see that, you know, this value does not match this kind of like, you know, how do you say, rule. And if I'm changing that, hold on, I can change that in here. Don't know if you from 6, yeah, validate. I can solve this problem, or I can leave out this record and maybe go back to the supplier that he needs to really work on this data again. Another example is by the text field here. And you could imagine you get some data and you want to have this in 40 characters. They deliver you 41 characters. I would not send this back. I would just take this little character out, and then I have solved this problem for this exception, and you know, can import this kind of information in my catalog as well. And last but not least, this is the most important or very interesting part is, you know, in this catalog, I have a lot of products which are, you know, normally very low priced, but only one product has a very high price. So our intelligence gets suspicious and gives us the hint that, hey, there's one record with a very high price. This does not really fit to the other, you know, kind of product data that you have imported. Take a look at this. Of course, I know that the Fmax complete set is a really high priced set. So in this case, I can give my system the confidence that this is okay. I validate it. And you know, I'm done with the normalization job. Once this is completely done, and something I did not mention at the beginning, and that's important, the Unify solution here is directly connected to our, you know, Akeneo PIM. So the whole data structure, the whole rules that you saw, which are checked in the AI, basically are coming from the Akeneo PIM and directly exchanged with the Unify portal. Once we have created and once we are done through this onboarding process, the products will come directly to our PIM. So you see, for example, here the product that I imported, which has this UPC code that I have adjusted. So basically, once you've done with the onboarding process, the data will be imported into the PIM, and then you can continue your enrichment process, your syndication process, and use the products in your PIM, basically.
All right. So what you've seen here is basically some of the steps where you as an end user have to step in and initially, especially during the first few months, correct it, teach it where it's not sure. So whenever the system, let's say, says the probability of this being accurate is, let's say, lower than 85%, I'd like you to double check it. That's when you step in and do this. Everything else is automated for the vast majority of the products. It's only the exceptions. And the other thing to keep in mind is you are in charge with telling the system at what percentage of confidence it should notify you. And obviously we can help you with best practices on that front. And as shown in the video, then from there, it's sent directly to the PIM where the full enrichment can continue. And from the PIM, then you can send it to places like marketplaces, e-commerce, and so forth. There are many other aspects to this. Today, it's really like a sneak peek to show you how you can leverage it. I hope you've enjoyed this one. I'd like to hand it over back to Stefan to see if there's any questions that we can tackle for the sake of time.
Yeah, we do have some questions. Yeah. Henrik on YouTube is asking some questions about where the AI is sourcing the data from. So where does Unify get the data from?
Right. So that's there's a few things to this. There are, you know, pre-trained data models that where it gets the data. That's one thing. The other is there's data pools that it's connected to, and also depending on the use case, it will have a particular focus on your vertical, your company, and use that to also get smarter in that particular product area. So it's a combination, but they are pre-trained. The full training also happens during the implementation.
Cool. Hendrik also has a question on that model. Do you know which base model is being used, whether that is a llama based model or another model?
I can't disclose that yet, but we can talk about this if you contact me.
Okay.
I'll happily answer. Yeah.
Cool. I'll make sure that Hendrik gets your contact
Yes.
details.
Yeah.
And then he has one final question, which is on image recognition, or at least using attributes based on images. So, for example, you upload an image of a red sweater, right? Can the AI determine that for the attribute color that it should be red?
Yeah, great question. This is an extremely popular request. It's on the to-do list, on the roadmap, and we're working on it. As of right now, it's not, but we can also show you like where we are right now and what we will need for those use cases, how complex the images can be, and so forth. But I totally get it. As of right now, there's no conclusive yes or no. We're working on it, but we know it's extremely popular and a big time saver.
All right. One final question, and then the other questions we'll touch during the Q&A. Question from Jos on when you train the model on specific customer data. How does it work when there is no customer data available or little customer data available? How do you then proceed?
If there's little customer data available, perhaps we can take this question offline. Jos, let me know like if there's any details on this. I can connect you to our colleagues specialized in machine learning if you want an in-depth answer. But in the end, during the first, let's say, 3-5 months when you implement this, that's when, thanks to, let's say, scraping other data pools, familiar companies, that's where the model is primarily trained on. And for the details of which particular pools, where it's getting it, I'll happily discuss that in a call.
Cool. All right. Tony, thanks so much. I'll see you during the roundtable session, and see you back then.
Thank you.
All right. Time for our second speaker. Today we have Bernard from OneDot. Bernard, welcome to the Lightning Demos. I'll also share your presentation, and I would say good luck and see you on the other side. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Stefan, and warm welcome from my side. I'm dialing in from Zurich, and it started to snow, so very nice atmosphere here. So I have a couple of slides I would like to show, and then move to the demo. So thanks, Tony, also for the introduction on the problem. So just a quick recap why our customers are using OneDot. At the end, it's coming down to manufacturers or retailers that want to bring more products online and also update products faster. And at the end, also about digitalization of data processes. As everybody knows, data is messy, data is heterogeneous, and the mapping and the onboarding or syndication is taking a lot of time. That's why we founded OneDot with a mission to turn messy data into consumable data, and consumable data means the right data in the right structure and the right format. Our vision is to connect all relevant market participants to the OneDot platform so that these companies can exchange data freely and using the OneDot AI to automatically map the data from one structure to the other structure. OneDot is used by some of the largest manufacturers, retailers, and online marketplaces, mainly in construction tools, electronics, and fashion and sport. But the software can be used in all industry segments. Of course, over the OneDot platform, already hundreds of thousands of suppliers have already been processed, and OneDot AI has already been trained with over 500 million of products. Here's some of the manufacturers that were already processed. Here's the main overview of the platform. So you have the suppliers that can directly access the OneDot front end and upload and share the catalogs and self-onboard themselves to the retailer, or it can also be used as a platform only accessible to the merchant. And then the merchant will upload the catalogs from the suppliers to the platform, kick off the onboardings. The data is mapped, is onboarded, and then transformed to the PIM or ERP system. And at the end, you save time for the mapping. You can increase the data quality, and you're faster online. You can use a couple of data pipelines, so the product data, all the technical specification, asset pipeline, but also price and stocks. And the data model and the database is actually synced inside the Wonder platform. This is then used for the machine learning training. So here the core process for the product data onboarding. This is a customizable process. Up to 12 steps can be used. And at the end, it's about accessing or sourcing the data. And then the AI is automatically, AI and rules are automatically transforming the data into a onboarding result, which means it's already ready, or it can be already imported into the PIM or ERP system. These are all the steps, which some of them I can show you in the demo. The key onboarding steps are product matching, categorization, extraction. We already seen it. Then the attribute mapping, right? Mapping the supplier attributes to the vendor attributes, or to the sales channel attributes. Normalization of numbers, units, translation if needed. You can build the golden record in the Wonder platform, build the variants, and then yes, the onboarding results loaded into the PIM or ERP, and there no more mapping is needed. There's also the asset data onboarding pipeline. Here you can see what's available. So you can also load the assets in the Wonder platform. You can select the assets. You can define the sequence. You can rename, change resolution, file formats in the Wonder platform automatically. And then these data sets or assets will be delivered to probably a DAM system, either as the physical assets or public URLs. All right, so let's have a look at the system. Here you have a look at the main page or the personalized homepage. We are logged in now as a retailer, as a merchant. This means you will see all the suppliers that you're currently onboarding. And this is what you see here. Here you see all the onboardings. What you see here is all the data validation tasks. AI doesn't work without validation. And I will show you later how this works in the Wonder platform. Then let's move on to the main screen. This is the so-called progress view, where you see all the onboardings that are ongoing. Here, each row is an onboarding. Here you see, for example, a supplier called Hayes Safety Gloves. Then you Feger Schmidt, Kercher, right? And then you see all these onboarding steps, which we have seen on the slides before. Now let's have a look at Hayes. This is also the same view as for the supplier. So in case the supplier is self-onboarding, the supplier just needs to upload the catalog. On the main screen, we have seen an upload button. Then the Wonder platform is processing the catalog. This can be as fast as 30 minutes to a couple of hours, depending on the catalog size. And as all machine learning is applied, it takes a bit of time, but it's definitely fast. And then you see here, this is what was ingested, the product catalog, and this is then automatically the results that were generated. And this is something that you can directly have a look at, right? So this is now not anymore in the supplier structure. This is in the structure of the merchant. And the columns here are already in the taxonomy of the PIM or ERP, the target system. You can assess the quality here. You also have some data profiling capabilities here, where you can look at statistics. And if the data quality is fine enough, then you can directly load it into the ERP or PIM system, and you don't need to enter individual data validations. This will be done by just clicking on the Approve button, and then the data is forwarded to the target system. Especially in the beginning, we recommend that the user is actually validating the intermediate results. and would like to show you how this looks like. So here we have a matching step. A matching step is a deterministic step. So when we look here, for example, you see each row is a product, and you see here which of the products are actually already available in the PIM system. And then you get the match, the according match, which may have a different description, but it's matched over identifiers or also over fuzzy matching. And by uploading a catalog, you see this would also all be updates. Here it's already available. And then when you go down this catalog of about 12,000 products, here no match was found. This will be the new products to be created. Then when we continue, the categorization, of course, only needs to happen for the new products. This is then displayed in so-called feedback tasks, which the user can access here. You see here, now we have each row is a so-called product segment. And in blue, you have the example description, and in yellow, you have the proposed target category. As we're dealing here with safety equipments, here we have a lot of safety shoes. But for example, when you look here and open the filter, then you see, for example, all the different target categories that the software was proposing to, and also how many products. This helps you to get the first understanding of where products were categorized. And if you agree, right, you can validate. Confirmation of something that has been correct is also important for machine learning. Alternatively, if you disagree, you can enter here your own taxonomy or the taxonomy of the sales channel, and you say, okay, this must be something else. This is a universal Einsatz. And like this, you can override the proposal by the software. Once you're done, you need to save and then resolve the task. This means that you have completed the validation process, and this feedback should be taken into account. And this is then the same system that you can do for the remaining steps, also the attribute mapping. There's the mapping proposals by the AI, which you can have a look at. We distinguish between the global attributes and the category-specific attributes. You see here the automated proposals done by the software. And if you disagree, you can, of course, override and say, no, this is a different attribute. Here are the category-specific attributes. This is elegantly solved. So you can do category-specific attribute mapping as you would do on a global level. As you can see here, right, we have all the categorization from the previous step. Here, all the attributes from the catalog, from the vendor catalog, and then here mapped to the category-specific target attributes. There are advanced views if you really want to understand what's happening and see different source values or target values. There's a more advanced view, but I'll keep it short now for this demo. I think main takeaway is that you also can benefit from auto-proposal on a global attribute level and a category-specific attribute level. Once you're finished, you can save and resolve. And of course, this goes then back into the machine learning and helps to improve the proposal in the future. And everything, of course, that you confirm will be memorized by the system. So I'm going back here. And this continues on the normalization side. So you have a list of value mappings, and you have normalization of numbers and units. Here you can also build a golden record. That's also something which you can build outside the PIM system or the ERP. And here, for example, the software is also generating the product variants according to the specifications of the merchant. And this is, of course, one of the configurations that needs to be synced to the Wonder platform. So by looking at the time, let me also show you this view here. If you have here a task, this is an advanced, let's say, task management system. We have seen now from Hayes, the supplier Hayes, that all these validations are available. They are optional. You don't have to do validator mappings. But we recommend to do it, especially if it's an initial onboarding. And if you're starting to use OneDot, it's recommended to validate. And you can assign these feedback tasks to groups, to category management teams, to specific people or also to independent data clerks, or the supplier can also do that, right? So you can reassign, and as you can see here, these can be then automatically assigned to the suppliers or category management teams, groups, and then people can go and collect these tasks and do the validation here. All right, I think we have a little bit more time to look at one more intermediate results. I think the list of value mapping, I think, is an interesting one. You have list of values, and the software is then proposing the values to your list of values. It's always the same concept, right? You see here in blue what the supplier or what you have delivered as a manufacturer, and then in yellow the proposals by the software. And then you also see, for example, here what type of list of values actually are available for this specific target attribute. So list of value mapping, number mapping, this is something which needs very little validation. The main validation that our customers are doing are on the categorization and on the attribute mapping. Normalization is pretty straightforward, not much done. Golden records, if that's the case. Product variants are normally no feedback required, and then you have the results. So the feedback that you have now given is not yet updated in the result. Once you've finished your feedback, you need to reprocess the whole job. This means that the job is submitted to a cluster in the cloud, and reprocessing and incorporating all the feedback, and then updating all the tasks and the results. Then you can check, right, if you're satisfied with the result. If the result is good, then you can approve the job and load it into PIM or ERP. If for some reason you say you still want to further invest and improve the data quality, you can open again these so-called feedback tasks, solve them or give feedback, and then potentially reprocess again. So who is doing these validations? This is often a joint effort. The merchant, the data teams by the merchants are doing it, or the supplier is doing it themselves. If the supplier is doing that, then the merchant is normally still supervising the quality at the end. It's never happening that the supplier is completely doing the self-onboarding and the merchant is never checking the data quality. Because everybody is putting more emphasis on the data quality. So it's important that only good quality goes into PIM. I think the last interesting thing is about how to actually get access to the data catalogs. I would like to show here the user section where you have all the users, so the merchant users and the supplier users. And if you say, okay, we have here a supplier that I would like to get new data from, you can send a data request. You can then say, for example, I want to have the new price list 2024. You can even specify a folder where they want to upload, or where they should then upload the catalog to. You can write a message and then send a request, and the supplier is receiving an email with a request to upload data. Of course, the opposite is also, if a supplier is proactively uploading a catalog, then the merchant can also subscribe to events and then get notified if a supplier has uploaded a new catalog. All right. I think that's what I wanted to show. Any questions so far?
All right. I have some questions, Bernhard, if that's you discussed sort of the mappings and that it helps categorize. How is that done? Is that business rules? Is that generative AI? How does that work?
Well, what we have access to, right, is the complete ERP or PIM database. And when OneNote is used, is normally already an existing PIM or ERP where you have existing classification. So these data sets are used as training data sets for and then we generate a merchant-specific machine learning model. So we have our algorithms, which we train each time specifically for the merchant. Unless it's an international standard like eClass or UNSBSC or eTIM, that's of course not different from merchant to merchant. Then it's just about which version of these standards need to be used. And we have a community database where we're using the data to train these models. So everybody who's contributing to this community can also benefit, of course, from all the data that has already been inside this community database.
That's cool. Okay, I have one question from Martin. I think I can show it on the screen as well. So I'm not sure. Can you see it, Bernhard? Yeah. So
yes, regarding the 1 second.
So Martin says he understands the value for normalization, but do you encounter any manufacturers that experience loss of differentiation during this normalization process?
So with normalization, you mean the overall process, not just a specific step in the Wonder process, 1 out of 12 steps, I guess. So I wouldn't say that people are losing differentiation, right? At the end, it's about your product. Your product has USPs, and people need to understand what are these USPs and what are your specifications, right? Just that your product is comparable to other products doesn't mean that you're losing a differentiation. Of course, if your product doesn't have any differentiation, it becomes transparent. But otherwise, I think this is an excellent way also to differentiate, because people can see that you are excel in specific technical characteristics.
Yeah, exactly. So the differentiation happens on other attributes, not on the categorization. Okay. Cool. I would say thanks, Bernhard. I'll definitely see you during the Q&A session, so you'll be right back, which means that we'll be moving to the final speaker of today, Dirk Grunewald. Welcome to Meeting Demos.
Yeah, hello everyone.
Hello. The floor is yours, so take it away.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you very much for having me, and also thank you very much to the audience for taking the time. I know that the time is valuable, so you choose it to spend it with us. That's great. My name is Dirk Peter Grunewald. I am the CEO of Digital Consulting House. We are providing advisory and also professional services for product information management and MDM, which includes multiple subjects. I will come to that. One of them is also artificial intelligence and machine learning. Let me share my presentation. Let me see how that is working. Actually, I don't have the ability anymore to share my screen. So that's, can you,
right,
can you please get that back
we have
to
a
me?
solution there, yeah. Luckily, I have your presentation, Bernhard, but I need to quickly.
Yeah, you can also show my presentation. I'm fine with that too.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you can reshare your screen. If that doesn't work, I'll quickly grab the presentation.
Unfortunately, I don't have that button anymore. It's gone.
Right. Let's see. It is a PDF file.
Yeah, it's actually it's a PowerPoint originally, but I made it the way that it will also work as a PDF.
Cool.
As I said at the beginning, I'm prepared for all eventualities. So, and whilst you are doing that, maybe a couple of more words to the subject. One of you guys just asked an excellent question. And the question was, what is about the data? Where does the data come from? And actually, there's one thing to keep in mind. And I'm still not seeing my presentation.
No, give me some time. Sorry, Peter. Sorry.
So there is one thing you should keep in mind always when dealing with data. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, how all these are being called, in particular artificial intelligence. There is no intelligence, without the data. So we'll have to have a look into the data. And today in the presentation, which hopefully soon comes up, we will look a little bit under the hood of what is actually happening behind the scenes in some of these systems. Yes, actually we are seeing the screen. So the presentation is named. If you go to the next slide. There is no I in AI without data. So, and as I said, we are not a software provider. We are we are actually dealing with the software of the various vendors. So, and I want to share a little bit of our knowledge here. So please go ahead into the next slide. So what will we talk about today? So first of all, who are we? There is another presenter who's actually responsible for most of the AI-related content who cannot make it here, but I will step in on his behalf. I will talk about a little bit about what are the definitions. So what means PIM? Probably don't have to spend too much time on it. And what is AI, right? And then obviously the subject, because or why you are here, is how can AI help with PIM? You saw a little bit of it, so to say, from the front end. And I will talk a little bit about the back end, and I will also talk about where the limits are. So, and yeah, a little bit of advertising will be part of that as well. On the one hand, for our services, but on the other hand, you see, I'm wearing here this symbol here, this logo. That's Sparty. That's the logo of the Michigan State University, and that's where the other speaker is right now finishing his bachelor's in master in data science, and in particular in artificial intelligence. So let's go to the next slide. So this is us. So first of all, well, Mr. Alexander Grunewald here, right to my next. He's the one who is also responsible for some of the content we are seeing here. So, and you see, we do a vast amount of services from data strategy, data governance, evaluating products. That's a little bit of an overlap with what PIM Vendors is doing, solution architecture and design. Over the course of the last 2 decades, I had the opportunity to deal with a lot of PIM and MEM systems, including Informatica, Stibo, Akeneo, InRiver, Riversand, you name it. And we also, over that time, developed some expertise in the area of enterprise taxonomy, data strategy. Well, I implemented a couple of dozen PIM implementations during the last 2 decades as well, all around the world. Data cleansing and enrichment, database publication, like using InDesign, for instance, or using like actually plugins and other solutions to connect your PIM system to your publications, to your catalog publications, print and PDF. And we also provide trainings, right? Alexander is focused on things like business intelligence and, again, AI and ML ops, data development, DevOps, right? And we have a couple of other people in the company, but actually the main folks responsible for the content here of that presentation deck are the 2 on the left. So if you might want to go to the next slide. Okay, let's go to definitions. So I think the easy one, that's PIM. Right, and I use some content from Techopedia here, actually a definition which I quite like. From our perspective, PIM is much more than just a software or software tool. For every endeavor, you need a couple of more elements. You need actually exactly 4 elements. You need an organization, the people. You need a process. You need to know what you're doing, so you need the knowledge. And then you also need the right tools. But at the end, you could define product information management as a set of processes which you use to evaluate, identify, store, onboard, manage, and distribute product information. And it could be any kind of product information. So it could be raw data, it could be assets, it could be, excuse me, product content, or any kind of related information. And there's a reason why you do that. Obviously, you want to get to a faster time to market. I think it was mentioned already in the first deck as well. Higher conversion, higher revenue, and higher margin. So it's all about turning over faster, having more customers, having a better customer relationship as well, and finally allows you to make more money. Right? As simple as that. So, and then obviously you want to put the other thing in, which is artificial intelligence. And so we have a next slide for that. Looks pretty similar, but has other content. So so what is it really, right? What you do is you simulate human intelligence, and you do that by machines, in particular computer systems, right? That's but there could be other forms of doing it, but usually we do it via some kind of information technology. So artificial intelligence is also known as machine intelligence, and it allows you to, it actually is able to learn to make decisions autonomously, and to carry out actions as well, right, on behalf of the human being, right? And what it really, what you get here is some kind of AI programming. So you program the artificial intelligence, however you call it, to simulate cognitive skills we as human beings have as well. Obviously, this is not human, but there are a couple of aspects which are being simulated here, like it's learning, right? It ingests information, like we as human beings can do that as well. And based on the information, you create rules, right? And then obviously the next thing is reasoning, right? You choose the right algorithm, right? So the two speakers before were talking about algorithms, so you have to choose the right one, obviously. And then you have to be able to correct yourself, right? You have to some range in which you expect the outcomes. So and the outcomes might not exactly what you expect, so you fine-tune the model a little bit. And then there's also creativity, which you are emulating. So you use these AI techniques also to generate new assets. Well, the word generate obviously is included in generative AI. Well, that's where it basically comes from. So this little picture up there, I think visualize it quite well. So you ingest the data, you organize it, you clean and prepare, you do the mapping. We were talking about mappings. You do all the wrangling, and then you test your algorithm, you validate, you tune your model, and then you deploy, manage, and track, and then rinse and repeat. So the cycle begins again, right? However, if you go to the next slide, most of what we saw, you go to the next slide, please. Most of what we saw is actually not really AI in the closer sense, right? AI contains a couple of other subjects, and what most of AI you see in our days, that's in reality, that's machine learning. So that's a little bit of a level down. And machine learning itself is divided into three major types, right? You have unsupervised learning, supervised learning, and reinforcement learning. So, well, the reinforcement learning is something like making life decisions. You see that when you are playing computer games, right? The game AI, robot navigation, and so on. That's less relevant, obviously, for PIM and MDM, right? But if you go to the supervised learning area, and then classification and regression. Well, classification is obviously a big thing. What is a thing you are looking at, right? Like visually, but also we saw in the demos before, we saw also you have a text, like a copy text, and together maybe with an image or just by itself, you might be able to figure out some of the attributes of that object where you're looking at as well, right? And then there is a regression, which is being used to forecast. So if certain conditions are present, and that can be multidimensional, then there is a certain outcome to be expected, right? So that's what is mathematically trying to either you do a root mean squared error, right? You try to find a regression line, right? Or if it's multidimensional, then there's also something like a multi-loss function, right? So you try to find the best way, the optimal way through a specific space, right? Which allows you to predict what might be the outcome within certain conditions, right? And then also for the unsupervised learning, for instance, you might have things like clustering, right? When that's interesting when you want to cluster your customers, right? Or visualization of big data, right? So, and when we are going to what what is relevant really for PIM. I have a small example here on the left button. I will come to a couple of more examples in the next slide. Right, the classification of a product. Right, so bananas and apples. You have some algorithms with a model, which then are able to classify that object. There is something called the JEPT paradigm of machine learning. So what is the goal, right? Or what is the goal of that machine learning model? In this case, it's to classify a product. What is the experience, right? That's a data set. Performance is the accuracy, and test. That's a separate data set, which is used to test the model together with the original data set you used to train, if the model provides the right outcome, right? So if you go into the next slide, then you will see a little bit of some of the applications, and you saw some of it already in the presentations, right? So first of all, well, the automatic detection, right? Ideally, over time, if you train the model right, you should be able, just with maybe a picture of the product and some other information like a description, right? You should be able to say what that product is. Obviously, then for that, you have to have a taxonomy already. So the model must be trained very well. The training data must be in good shape, and there must be some consistency. But if that is the case, then let's assume you are selling cars, right? Then, or you are buying cars and sell them again. Then, if someone sends you a photograph, it should be able to recognize what that is. Or you could have other kinds of products which are then classified, and also maybe some of the attributes are coming out there as well. So there was a question of, okay, if the product, the shirt, or in this case, the car is white, then, well, it should not say it's a red car, right? That's, that would not be ideal, or at least it should understand that there is a contradiction here, right? And then the other case, which I think everyone is talking about, right? And everyone is saying check GPT. I would bet that at least like 2/3 or even more of people who would be asked what GPT stands for would not be able to answer that. So it's a generative pre-trained transformer, right? And basically it uses also these models, right, to bring in, for instance, a photograph, some attributes, some statements about what you want, and then it gets you, you can't see that here very well, but it gets you a complete description of the product with all information you might want to be able to put on the website, right? So again, that will never be perfect, or it will be hard to get perfection there, but it could be very helpful and could really boost, as already being mentioned, boost your productivity. However, if you go to the next slide, I have to pour some water into the wine, right? I come back to the original statement. All of this does only work with a couple of indispensable ingredients, and they are independent of the software, and they are also independent of the tool, of which artificial intelligence tool you are using, right? First of all, very important ingredient, often forgotten, is you need to have goals. You need to know what you want to achieve, and it should be smart, should be specific, it should be measurable, it should be achievable, should be realistic and timely, right? It's often forgotten, and then you come up with unrealistic expectations, which are not very well managed either, and you get into trouble, right? Well, another very important thing, and it was also mentioned already, is data governance, right? You understand where your data comes from, where is the single source of truth, because otherwise you have to deal with all these contradictions. Who is responsible? What is the lineage? Where does it come from? Right? And then it would be very helpful to have a working enterprise taxonomy, which is actually, there are some rules for it without me going into the details here. You should have in place with some good feature definitions as well. And the word good data and assets to train the model, and also good data to be processed by the model are also indispensable. And also, I think it would be good to understand what plausible answers are, and you should be always aware of the limits and the bias of the model you put together and how it's being influenced, right? So, so basically, this is all stuff which, again, will not be solved by software. You have to do the homework. AI or ML is not a silver bullet, right? You have this little comic here, which illustrates it a little bit. Yeah, you can steer a lot in the pot, but without good data, the answer at the end will not be what you really want. Okay, please go to the next slide. I think we are almost at the end. So how do I get started with my AI project? Well, apart from choosing the right tools, of which you have seen two options in the previous demonstrations, you should be aware of the big picture. You should get yourself the data. Discovering the insights, there might be some specifics. You need to prepare it properly. You have to select the right model, the right algorithm, fine-tune the model, right? Don't believe everything. Don't believe every answer you get. Evaluate, and then you deploy it. And there are some tools a lot of these data scientists are using, like, for instance, Python, PyTorch, Pandas, and so on. Without going into the technical details, these are some of the tools these people use in order to make these models and to train them and to test them. Go to the next, please. So, and here, just a little bit of advertising. So we are around now for 10 years. Started 2013 in Detroit after I left a company called Informatica, or HYLA. I was in charge of HYLA professional service and consulting in North America before Informatica took over, and I started our own company to be independent. So we have a whole menu of services. I don't want to go through every detail here, but if you are interested, feel free to contact us. We are helping you, and we're also happy to work with everyone on the product side, like also these two gentlemen who presented here. And then there is a last slide, a last advertising. That's the reason why I also wear this shirt here. There's a QR code here you can scan, which gets you right on the website of the Michigan State University Artificial Intelligence Club, where the other speaker who could not present here in the last semester was the vice president of technology of, right? They're also sponsoring opportunities if you want to do that, if you are coming from the US or if you're just a global company. A lot of other global companies are already doing that. Okay, and I think that's more or less it. If you go to the next one, I'm ready for questions if they are directly related to this presentation. Otherwise, I think we can go into the question and answer session. And I think I went through.
Yeah.
Sorry for that.
Yeah. No. Thanks. Thanks, Dirk. I think you're right. It's also time to go into the question and answer session. So I'll add Bernard and Tony again. Hi, Bernard. Hi, Tony. Thanks again. Thanks to all of you for your time and your presentations and your introductions to the tooling, but also sort of to the technology behind the tooling and how it all works. I want to ask the audience to put any questions they might have in the chat boxes, either on YouTube or on LinkedIn. People have been able to find those chat boxes, so that is good. I want to start with one question, or maybe take one question from Isaac, who asked whether it is for retail products or for industrial products when it came to Unify, but basically take his question and transform it in a more general question where I'd like to have you all comment maybe a bit on the specificity or the niche modeling of various machine learning and generative AI models. So how do you all see the challenges of these well, either specific or sort of broader models, and when to use which model maybe? Bernard, could you let me know how you?
Well, I mean, it's not just one model we're using for all, right? We have these 12 steps, and we have about 5 steps which are using machine learning, and all of these machine learning steps are solving individual problems and have individual algorithms. So the key ones are categorization. I think that's there actually we use machine learning on two sides. One is on the similarity side, syntactical side, and that's how we started. We were just comparing similar strings basically. And then over time, we added also the semantic understanding that it's not just looking if it looks similar, but also if the software is really trying to understand. And this is how we combined, for example, the machine learning models for the classification steps. Because especially if you're in a technical area like construction products or drills, etc., some of the generic language models, which are just trained on I don't know, on Wikipedia, are not specific enough, and then basically these standard models don't really lead to an answer.
Yeah. How do you see this, Tony?
So to answer the gentleman's question directly, on Unify or Akinio, is it retail or industrial? It's both. There is no limitation from a vertical point of view that you can use it for. It's trained on a big corpus of text data, and then it can also be trained in the initial phase by yourself by your corrections, and then obviously anything else you integrated with. So from that point of view, it's wide open. Now, the most obvious use cases and put it simple, low-hanging fruit that we go after, where we really solve it directly, is with things like retailers. For example, Intersport uses this already because it's just the availability of the data, the ubiquity and prevalence in all different places. But from let's say other niche verticals or use cases, we don't foresee any long-term speaking, any limitations on why that shouldn't be doable.
Yeah. Okay, makes sense. We also have a question from the audience from Jan. Let me see if I can get it on the screen. Here we are. So the relation between PIM and ERP. When is it useful to have a separate PIM system? And maybe also comment on, should PIM be first or ERP be first? Maybe Tony, can you as a representative from PIM take this question?
Sure. So where do we start? Like, you can approach it from but let's do the simple things. Most likely you already have an ERP, and then what we've seen over the last, let's say, 5 to 10 years is that the PIM is slowly maturing and also becoming a dedicated solution. What you will see is with some of the legacy, let's say B2C or B2B companies, is as they make a transition into to the online world, and they need to adhere to these inflated expectations of their customers, even if they're B2B, because they're used to they're used to being pampered as a B2C customer. That experience from a product point of view is not going to be delivered with an ERP itself. You need a separate solution. This cannot be an Excel sheet. This can be slightly hacked in the ERP or in the e-commerce. That's something dedicated, because you're not only dealing with lots of destinations, the number of products that you're offering online is going to be growing as well, various markets, various languages. So I would say, when is it useful? When the complexity of your products warrants a separate system, and when the number of places where you have to present it, contextualized, individualized, that's when it totally makes sense. There is very little overlap between what an ERP does and a PIM. Almost always is there an ERP and a PIM. If you ask a different question, like what about an MDM, master data management, and a PIM, then there may be more overlap there. But still, a PIM, what you see, is becoming more and more prominent in most ecosystems, whether you're B2B or B2C.
Yeah, I think maybe Derek, you have some questions.
Yeah, there are actually at the minimum two aspects.
Yeah.
To elaborate a little bit on what Tony is saying, a real PIM can do a couple of things which an ERP never will be able to do. Like, for instance, managing a taxonomy and the feature and the value definition, and then allowing something which is called inheritance, right? So you have, for instance, in my example, you had a shoe, or you may have a car, an inverter, and a lobster. They all have entirely different attributes. They have some attributes maybe which are the same. For instance, the SKU number, short description, long description. right? But some others, like the size, or from the lobster, maybe where it was caught or something, they are attributes which you want to have for the same class of products in a unified, consistent, and also normalized way, right? But for the other class, you want to have them different. And maybe you have several levels of taxonomy where you want to inherit these attributes and the attribute definitions down and have a proper hierarchy. That is something an ERP system normally does not do, right? So the moment you have more complexity there, you will be almost, well, it will be almost impossible to manage your data properly in an ERP system in the way that you can publish and sell it. That's one aspect. The other aspect, which was mentioned, was about, okay, how ERP and PIM work with each other. That depends highly on what kind of company you are, right? So if you are a manufacturer, then it's very likely that the SKU or the product is born either directly in the ERP or in a PLM system, product lifecycle management system, like Windchill, for instance. So that's one of the contenders in that space, right? And then the data is flowing into your PIM or MDM system, with PIM maybe a sub-function of the MDM. If you are a retailer, or if you are a distribution company, and that was a scenario we saw here with the supplier management at the beginning from Tony, then data might, or a product might be born outside of your whole system, and it goes first through your supplier portal, through your supplier management, through your PIM system, and then finally it might end up in the ERP. There might be also interaction, right? You send data to the ERP system, but then something is coming back, like an acknowledgement, and telling you also what, for instance, the SAP material number is. The same way I have seen a lot that companies start management, product, they call it product data management of a product in the ERP system, and then have enrichment being done in the PIM, and then send some of the information back again, right? So it really depends, but in general, you can say manufacturers typically start in ERP and PLM, whilst distribution companies and retailers started the other way around.
Yeah. Bernhard, do you have anything to add based on where OneDot fits into this scenario, right? So onboarding of data.
Well, basically we don't care, right? You can use OneDot to onboard an ERP and or in PIM. So that's depending on the company and the setup. Yeah, there's reason for both. Yeah.
What do you see most often, or what do you encounter most often when implementing OneDot?
Well, the onboard, I mean, where the main pain point comes is from the e-commerce side, because they suddenly need to manage a lot of information. So most of the companies are first starting to be interested into automated product data onboarding into the PIM. And then once they realize that the onboarding works fine, they think, oh, by the way, I can also onboard the data into the ERP. And then you're talking more about automated price updates. So that's a classical journey.
Yeah. And maybe, Dirk, we also touched on the topic of MDM a bit. So how does that, let's confuse the audience even more with 3-letter combinations. How does MDM then fit in that whole product journey?
That's an interesting subject, because now that touches on one also very contentious point, and that's terminology, right? Mm-hmm. So everyone here in this kind of a business is using different words for the same things, and names different things the same way. So it happened to me once in a workshop, very at the beginning of my PIM career, where I had a workshop with one customer, and we spent maybe most of the morning until we found out, yes, we were talking to each other and we wrote down results, but we were speaking about totally different things, which changed the whole meaning, right? Which meant that some of the time we spent meaninglessly. So in general, you can say MDM is more like the overall term for managing master information, managing master data. And again, I'm looking more from the process side. So that is not just product, that could be also supplier, it could be customer, whereas supplier and customer are much easier, because it's everywhere in the world is always the same way how that is being done, or location. And then there is reference data, like these value lists, the normalization Bernard was speaking about, right? And then last but not least, right, there is product, and product is always the most complicated one. So some people also say master data management, and then product master data management, or product MDM as one of the domains, right? Some of the vendors even say it's just master data management, nothing else. It doesn't really matter what you're managing. But I believe that still PIM is a very specific case, because product is complex. Product is always different, even within companies of the same vertical, within the same branch of business. It is different, and it deserves its own attention, right? If you are able, for instance, if an MDM system or even like a service company is able to deal very well with customer and supplier, that means nothing for the subject of product information management. I can count multiple vendors of product of master data management systems who will do quite well with customer and supplier and with reference data, but will do very badly with product data, because they are just not equipped for use cases like attribute inheritance. Right? Most people, if I say that word, don't even get why this is so massively important, why this is so complex, and why only few of the vendors are really mastering it.
Yeah, maybe could you explain for the audience what inheritance is and how that works?
Yes, of course. Right. Inheritance in an object model means that attribute or information you have stored on a higher level according to some rules you define is being inherited down to the next level, right? So for instance, you have, let's go to the simple thing. You have a fashion brand, right? You have men's apparel and ladies apparel. So from men's apparel, you go down to shirts, and then you go down one level to dress shirts. So all men's apparel might have maybe a couple of attributes in common, like for instance, material, right? But the values are obviously different, right? So the value lists you have to apply are different. So you could inherit that down to the level, right? And some other attributes or features, I call them features, which are becoming attributes for the products which are classified there, have to be attached at the lowest level, right? And then again, you also, part of the inheritance is on the one hand, the definition, right, of the attribute. It could be the value list, it could be the units of measure, right? But on the other hand, it could be also values. There could be some predefined values, which are always the same for all the products within a class. But typically, you just have the definitions which you inherit down, which limits then the attributes and what you can enter into these attributes for a specific product group. And that's very important. Normalization means you lose maybe some fidelity. You lose some little gray tones in between, right? For instance, colors, right? There could be thousands of ways how you could say blue, right? Could be azul, could be royal or whatever, right? But at the end of the day, downstream, the implication is huge, right? If you don't have proper normalization in place, then for instance, on your website, faceted search will not work, right? And also search engine marketing will become very tough, right? So you have to think about all these aspects. Very few people do that right away. Hence, it's so important, in my opinion, that you take that time at the beginning without even looking into any kind of IT, right?
I think the complexity of managing products efficiently is understated, right? So yes, you can store lots of product data in different toolings, a master data management tool, an ERP tool, in Excel. But managing that complexity and managing it efficiently, like changing one thing changes on all the linked attributes, or as you discussed, like the normalization to whatever you have defined internally as your product to what your output channels, your customers, your website, your Amazon marketplace needs. That is where the complexity comes. And we then haven't even touched the whole onboarding part, which is basically the whole session that we had. Maybe Tony, do you want to add anything on how that all connects and how you manage that complexity?
Well, we can go into even more details, but I think Derek just laid it out pretty nicely. But there's like another question that just came in, and
Yeah.
I, in the meantime, quickly checked with my colleague. So that's Ragib that's asking it. I'm not sure if you want to read that one.
Yeah, it's a long question, so I'll read it. So can a really AI integrated PIM efficiently extract data from an extensive HTML content, so such a downloadable HTML product detail page from an online retailer such as Amazon, Walmart, probably any web shop? And then specifically, can it extract relevant content associated with the products, such as attributes as weights or as a description or maybe color, and effectively capture those, including product image links, document links, and even organize those attributes accordingly and appropriately?
So a pretty long, detailed question. A good question.
Great question.
I have the answer because I already asked my colleague.
Very good.
Ragib, if you send us the full HTML code, the answer is yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's a short answer for a very long.
My answer to it would be it depends. No? It depends on the data, right? On your model, on how you trained your model before, right? So the answer is yes, you can do that, but you have to think about all the things we were talking about before.
Well, the question is, do you want this, right? So this brings up the whole
that's another
copyright
question
issue,
altogether, right?
And
what do you even want that? Is that your goal, right? So
yeah. So why wouldn't you want it, Bernard? Maybe. So why would you not just want to download the full HTML product detail page from Amazon in your PIM or in your? Why don't you want to onboard the full page directly? Does anyone want to pick up that question? Why you don't want to just download the full product detail page or the full information?
Well, so I asked the question based on like if you really do this as a one-off, that's one thing. But
yeah, no, sure. But
is this
so
like already mentioned? Do you want to do this? Not really. I mean, is this scalable? What if the information there changes? Like, do you want to continuously re-upload it, send it to us? So it's, I would say, a matter of let's automate in a smart way and not let's do this because it's fashionable, and in the end, the result is almost as productive as just doing it manually.
No, it's great to have the ability, right, to have it as a data source, and it's great that it is supported and that AI helps us do this efficiently. But what if a competitor wrote that text, right, or a competitor made those images, and now you're loading them into your PIM, publishing them on your own website? That leads to all kinds of interesting conversations downstream with legal, I suppose.
Yes.
So yes, this is possible, and probably as Alex as Derek already mentioned, it is something you might want to do and might want to have as a source of data, but you might want to have it as one source of data with maybe 2 or 3 other sources of data as well, and combine that with either a machine learning query or some kind of generative AI model that combines the different sources and writes its own unique content, right? So that is, I think, both from an SEO perspective and from a legal perspective, the thing you would like to have is unique content, not the copied content. But great question. And of course, Anna also mentions on LinkedIn that product info might also not be correct, right? So you might take in data from Amazon or from a web shop or a Google search that is not correct, and there's no way to tell if you take that data automatically with an AI tool. Maybe back to onboarding again. We mentioned the whole technology or the taxonomy mapping. Where do you see the most sort of value being added? Is that in text? So AI adding value in the onboarding of product data? Is that in taxonomy mapping, right? And normalization of categories? Is that maybe in data cleansing, right? So making sure that what the misspelling of blue being misspelled as blue, or or things like that? Is it, I don't know, where's the greatest efficiency gain? Bernard, maybe do you want to comment on that?
Yes, I mean, from our point of view, it's clear on the taxonomy mapping, right? You need to categorize the products. Quite often in large organization, you have multiple categorizations that you need to cater, right? You have a purchasing a structure, you have a sales structure, then normally you have an attribute defining structure, product family structure. Then you're dealing with lots of international.
I think we lost him.
Okay, I think we
Can you
lost
still hear me?
there. Yes, we can. We can hear you again. Yeah.
Back. Okay. Okay.
So
To recap, it's the taxonomy mapping, right? Large organizations have lots of. Can you still hear me again?
yeah, I can still hear you. Yeah.
Okay, so it's categorization, right? Large organizations have up to 10 categorizations they want to cater. And then the most complex one is the attribute mapping. I think that's where most companies struggle. Normalization, yes, but I don't know if something is written blue with a typo or with no typo. I think that's something you can correct, but I don't think that's the biggest added value. Yeah. And then if you can generate identify wrong data, I think that's important. Especially if there's the topic about liability, but I think that's a little bit more complicated, and normally you need to involve the manufacturer if it's really about getting to the correct values. Yeah, and then it's about collaborating efficiently, detecting the wrong values, and then getting the answers from the manufacturers.
Yeah. Maybe Tony, where do you see the biggest benefits with applying Unify in the environments of Akeneo customers or PIM customers in general?
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to the data model and setting up particular structures for our customers, we help on that front as well by offering something pre-made based on our experience that can accelerate. They take it and then they tweak it, customize it for themselves. So that's one thing. That's there's no AI involved yet. Long term, we want to expand the AI and use it there as well. However, as of right now, where clearly it can be used, Unify itself, it's in cleansing the data, basically correcting the errors. It's really those simplest things that we showed in the demo that are the first in line to be tackled by AI. And then slowly we will add more and more to this to also help. For example, let's say the data is already in the PIM and it's ready to be exported to something like Amazon or anywhere else. Why don't we just structure it automatically for that endpoint without the PIM user having to do anything? So there's a lot of things to be done, and auto populating it, updating it, and so forth.
Yeah. Dave, do you want to add anything, or?
Yeah, I would say I have a slightly different point of view. I say it depends.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think you cannot say which aspect is more important. If you are a retailer, then of course auto classification, auto attribution of whatever data you get from your suppliers, that can be huge as long as you get some kind of minimum amount of data, and again you trained your model well. But if you are a manufacturer, then you might maybe look at other aspects like getting data out of your technical drawings, right, into the PIM, right, to populate the attributes correctly. Or another scenario which I've seen recently is larger scale manufacturers who acquire other manufacturers. Now it gets very nasty because each of these acquired manufacturers, they have their own ERP system, they have their own PLM system. And how do you bring that data then together? Then match and merge, like identifying hard and soft duplicates ASAP, might become a life-saving application as well. So I think it really depends, but all of these use cases have their justification. They can be very nice, but you always want to watch about what you really want to achieve, and is what you get out of the AI really like plausible And are these the outcomes you expect? If you let your AI write all of your marketing copy texts, you might be in for a couple of nasty surprises. The same with the image selections.
Yeah.
Or
I mean,
creation.
so AI is a very nice tool to have, but it's not the in all and all solution for
There
all your
is no
problems.
silver bullet. I think that's
There's no
something
silver
we can
bullet.
always say. It does not exist, not yet been invented.
Not yet, not yet.
Not yet, probably never. Probably at the same time,
Never say
like
never.
the paperless toilet, right? At the paperless toilet, we'll have also the silver bullet for it.
Well, the silver bullet. What I think is interesting is so the application of AI depends really on how you want to use it and where you want to use it and what your specific use case is, and that might depend on whether you're a retailer or a wholesaler or a manufacturer, right? So where does your data come from? Is it from technical drawings or from your PLM, your product lifecycle management tool, where you do the designs and manage the whole lifecycle of a product, or is it from your own suppliers, right? So is it mainly from other companies sending you product data, or is it from a data pool, even where it is already very much structured and you just need to map it to your own internal data model? We already touched upon one of the sort of issues with AI, which is the copyright issue and the fact that do you want to just like ingest all the data that there is, and especially if you sort of use it to map and copy directly. But I think there's also questions on can you just use, even if you recombine that data, right? So if you fine tune your own local large language model, or you train your own local machine learning model, or on customer data, on data of your customer, or on data of that is just out there in the wild, how that works from a sort of privacy perspective or data privacy perspective, or like if you have multiple customers and that are all using the same model, or that are all using a model that is trained on other customers. I'm very curious how you approach this, Bernhard, and with other customers using the same model that is all trained on their data, right? How does that work?
Yeah. Well, we have customer-specific models and generic models. So the customer-specific models, they are trained based on the PIM or ERP exports they provide us. And these are models, of course, we are not sharing. And anyway, they're not much of a value because it's a specific taxonomy that the AI is mapping to, and it's not used by anybody else. Regarding, let's say, taxonomies which are internationally used, like eTeam or eClass, we have these models or these two options, opt-in or opt-out. So if you opt in, then you're part of the community. And if you contribute your data, you can use the model which is trained on all the other community members. And of course, there the accuracy is better. If you say, hey, no, I don't want to contribute my data to the community pool, of course, it's not contributing that people can access it. This is basically then just going into the model. Then we would train a specific model based on the algorithms we have for this data that has been shared with the customer. So they can do opt-out, but machine learning, of course, is normally only makes fun if you're contributing.
Yeah, if you have lots of data. Do you have any indication of how much accuracy or how much that brings if you use a community model versus your own trained model? Just maybe a range of how much better that performs?
Well, it depends on how big your data is that you're bringing in, and of course the quality of your data, right? If you talk about classification, we say that you should have about 100 products per category available, so that a model can really have some significant, take some significant statistics out of it. If you just have a few products, then normally the distribution is skewed, and then you need to balance it out. It's a bit more difficult, yeah. And then if you go to a community model, then of course 100 per category is not much, right? If you have a community of lots of customers, and then the model is of course much better.
Yeah. And do you have a range, like how much better is much better, like 30% or 10% or 5%, which even 5% is huge, right? It means so many less attributes you have to check manually. But do you have an idea of how much better it is?
That's a
the
hard
range is.
question. I mean, I would say
Yeah, I know.
the accuracy that we achieve on classification are between 80 and 90%. And then, of course, it depends on the data, also on the taxonomy, right? If it's really differentiating, because if a taxonomy is set up the way that it's very ambiguous, then of course the AI is also not really finding out the differentiating things, yeah. And to say if you're not contributing, then maybe you're between 70 and 80%. I think there is a difference, but it's yeah. I think you could work around it.
Yeah, yeah. You touched upon an important topic, which is sort of the data that goes in. Even in 2023 and probably in the coming a decade as well, the old maxim still holds true, right? So something with garbage in is has something to say about the output. Have you
Yes.
have you had some experience with this, Dirk, in practice and things that went well, but also
Lots of,
things that went
as
wrong?
I said, lots of the silver bullet, and also the point in time when data comes really in a clandestine shape, or is in an immaculate shape on the customer side for feeding the models, and also the data itself we're talking about. When that is all clean, will be the same time when the paperless toilet has been rolled out everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It will never happen, right? Because technology is evolving, and it's evolving exponentially. So is the amount of data, and so is the amount of crap information. And most companies are struggling with the basics, and it starts really with the governance, right? It starts that you have an organization in place, that you have clearly defined ownership of data, that you have processes in place, that people know what they are doing. The tools are just one little aspect, and the tool will never make up for all the other deficiencies, which are actually exponentially growing. So, and that means, for people of us, there is a lot of work, right? And for the people within the companies who are dealing with data, they will never run out of work. So I'm pretty optimistic that this is a good line of work in general to be in for everyone, on the service provider side, but also on the manufacturer, retailer, and distributor side, right? And so, as I said, it will evolve. Data will never get into a perfect shape because there's always something you are going to add. Right?
Yeah.
So,
and I think it's valuable to invest in as well, right? So as you said, the amount of data and technology is expanding exponentially, but the opportunity as well. And I think in a increasingly digital world, not just on the sort of retail side and e-commerce penetration and integration into social channels, but also deeper down in the value chain with the B2B side of things, where more and more of the whole value chain is digitized and information is shared digitally instead of in printed form or in whatever form used previously. Maybe Tony, how does this work from an onboarding perspective when there is customer data, customer product data, and they want to sort of start using Unify? How does that start, and how do you make sure the data is clean and you don't get garbage in is garbage out?
Yeah, of course. That's one of the fundamental things you pay attention to when you train the model, but also the pre-trained models that we come up with. Once it started being implemented, the accuracy is primarily determined by the end user. So it's in your own hands. What you train it with, that's what it will take in. So from that point of view, it's pretty straightforward. And then also, as it scales, it will be able to take over, let's say, some of the learning and apply certain rules confidently without having to come back to you. So it's mostly in the hands of the end users as of right now on how it's trained with what type of data. And it's also possible to track the progress and real life see how accurate is the system when it delivers on things like categorization, on things like generating a particular title or attribute when it comes to width or length. So that would be it from the thing. One other thing I want to add was a previous question on, like, legality and so forth.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see that larger players are now offering things like a copyright shield. Like, I'm talking about the very largest ones, like, for anyone using their AI, that whatever they create, if there's any legal costs, someone comes to them and says, hey, you've used my data, that the big players, in this case, guys like OpenAI, they will cover that. So that's a pretty fascinating topic to follow. And then I'm looking forward to seeing how will this play out on the B2B side, because inevitably these things will come up as well. And where do you draw the line? So a very fascinating concept and things to explore.
Yeah, super interesting. Disney closing down and making sure that you cannot use create a Pixar-like character anymore in some generative models. Yeah, that is super interesting. Do you see? So I want to maybe close off a bit and start working towards the end with a future vision of each of you, and this copyright thing and the copyright shield is, I think, a very interesting future development. Maybe Bernard, start with you. If you're looking towards the future of artificial intelligence in the world of PIM, maybe even specific to onboarding, where do you see the world growing, and so where do you see the world going? Will it be exponentially growing data and capabilities? Where does that end?
Yeah. I mean, we believe in a heterogeneous world. So there won't be the one and only data standard to rule them all. Everybody will still have different taxonomies, classification, and standards they want to use. So how we see is actually the role of AI to enable free data exchange and, let's say, the translation between these individual taxonomies or standards. And that's actually how we want to build the most powerful AI, so that everybody can, independent of format and structure of the data, can exchange and let's say do business with other companies. And the AI is doing the mapping to it, on a level that you don't need to validate anymore. And then you have free business execution or free commerce execution.
Yeah. So regardless of input and regardless of output data model and regardless of your internal data model, finally freedom. So it doesn't really matter if anyone decides that we need to have an even different GS1 model for the new European market as we currently have. So every country having their own GS1 model, just to name one interesting heterogeneous model example. Okay, very, very cool. Dirk, how do you see that? How do you see that future?
Well, in the first place, I think predictions of the future are quite difficult. But I think I see it very similar like Ghana, right? So as I said, it's the data and the amount of applications and what people want to do with their data is exponentially growing. And well, we are just human beings. And you see that the average employee of any company or the average person finds it very hard, more and more harder to catch up. So artificial intelligence and machine learning models will help to actually stay at least in the following. But I don't think that you will ever catch up. So it will just make sure that you can still do what you plan to do. But you will not get to the point, I don't believe it, at least not in my lifetime, before I go into pension, that artificial intelligence starts to take over the work of some data stewards automatically, right? So these are the kind of visions which some so-called scientists, which I believe are more like, how should I call that? Say, it will be like the same kind of scientists who said 10 years ago, right now in our days, there would be everywhere autonomous cars, right? Do you see a lot of autonomous cars driving here around? I don't, right? And the same is probably with AI ML. It will enable people to keep up and again, build more applications we are not even able to imagine at this point. Right? It will not replace human beings.
Yeah. Okay.
Not that fast.
Not yet. Not in your lifetime.
Yeah, not in my lifetime. That's what I'm hoping for.
Well, maybe we'll upload you to the AI and have an artificial Dirk running around in 2070.
Yeah.
Okay, Tony.
I think it's
How do
more worth to do that with Alexander, my son.
something to discuss?
Yeah.
No, so Tony, how do you see that future? I mean, Akeneo purchased Unify. There must be a reason for that, right? So how do you see the future of AI and PIM?
Well, I'm in no position to prognosticate on the enormous potential or direction the AI in general will take. What I can share with you is that our long-term goal is to be basically the world's first intelligent product cloud. Right now, we're a product experience company, and what we want to do is take AI, which, as shown right now, we can already leverage at the entrance in the PIM. So from supplier data management, for example, we want to take that along every single step of the enrichment process to make it easier for our end users all the way until syndication or activating the product. And it's going to be an exciting journey. Lots is possible. And I would say the one thing I can probably say confidently, things will accelerate pretty fast at some point. The tipping point, and when that is, God knows.
All right. Thank you all for your visions. Thank you all for your participation and sharing your visions and tools and approaches today. I also want to thank the audience for sticking with us for I think almost 2 hours now. I will send you all the recording of today's event. Thank you for attending. Thank you for your questions. Those were very insightful as well. And I really hope to see you at one of our future events, either on product information management or artificial intelligence. So with that, I want to wish you all a very good evening, and I hope to see you soon. Goodbye and good evening.